Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my Spring 2019 quarterly writing wrap-up. I make a video like this every 3 months to recap events from my writing life and to hold myself accountable to the goals that I set last quarter and then to make some new ones. So without further ado, let's get into the video. I got my notes right here, and spring actually started off with a bang. With a author fest that I went to, the DC Author Fest, put on by the DC Library. It was a free day of all sorts of panels and interactions with local writing institutions. The one that stuck out to me the most was a panel with a couple of local small presses, because I'm in the middle of writing a novella and I'm looking at small presses for publication. So I wanted to learn more about how these organizations ran and to learn about ones near me. And one that particularly stuck out was Baltimore-based Mason Jar Press. I talked to the editor there specifically because his press is publishing a couple of novellas in a collection next month. They're having one of their launch parties in DC, and I'd like to go, except that a friend of mine is also doing something that day, so I'm not sure. But anyway, another one of their books was a finalist for the 2008 PEN Open Book Award, so that's really exciting, and a reminder that small presses can still do big things. Also, in terms of my novella, I took part in the Maryland Writers Association's novel exchange program, and I got 3 beta readers who graciously agreed to read my novella, and 2 of them, I sent it to them through email, and they emailed back, a few paragraphs of thoughts, and, it was very gracious and generous of them. But I have to say that one person actually read through the novella, and then we talked in person, and she had very detailed notes for me, and it was quite the experience. Some of it was a sucker punch because, obviously she had some critiques, but in general it was such a incredible effort and kindness that she did for me to, give it so much thought, and so that was a great part of this quarter. And speaking of MWA, last quarter I went to their annual conference and had an amazing time, but there are still monthly chapter meetings, and unfortunately I haven't been able to make all of them this quarter because I had other stuff going on, but I went to the one in April, which was a panel on traditional publishing, and that was also, informative, and I'm just happy to continue to be involved in that group. But the group that I'm most excited about is my critique group that I joined in 2017, and actually we'd been floundering for a while. We hadn't been able to meet together to workshop since November, actually since October. In November we did Nano. And I think we were all a little frustrated or nervous about whether or not we could get our acts together again, or whether the group would disband. But it turns out that we were able to add a new member, and we started workshopping again. And it's just been so incredible to meet up with people and to go through that process of reading and writing and critiquing and socializing again. We've had 2 meetings so far, and we have a 3rd one scheduled for my birthday, actually, July 15th. Okay, now into the writing, or more accurately, the blog writing, because although I focus most of this video on my fiction writing endeavors, I do a lot of other writing as well, particularly with my 3 blogs. So I wanted to highlight 3 entries from those 3 blogs that are my favorite of spring. I'll start with Jewish DC, which is a blog I run about Jewish events in the DC area. And our local JCC just started a new festival, which is kind of a hybrid of film and music and other arts, called JXJ. And so I decided to go to a hybrid event, which was live musical accompaniment of old-time Yiddish cinema songs. And so there were these klezmer bands from New York that came in, and they did their own renditions of a lot of popular songs from these clips that they showed us from movies from like the 20s to the 40s, and it was really a lot of fun. Then on my Hava's Footsteps blog, which is largely a pop culture blog, I have a very recent post about Sansa Stark from Game of Thrones. She's my favorite character. In fact, I'm using her as inspiration for a protagonist of a fantasy project that's spinning in my head. But anyway, I took the time now that the show is over to analyze her arc in the show and also in the books. And it took a bit of time to get that blog post up and running, but I'm happy about the final result. And finally, in my reading and writing blog, well, I kind of talked about these already, but I went to 2 conferences lately, the DC Author Fest and then the MWA conference, so I wanted to do a helpful blog for my fellow writers to talk about the strengths of attending conferences and the differences between the two. So I wrote them up about what those 2 conferences are like with some bullet points, and I'll share it now with you. All of these links will be listed below. Okay, now on to my Spring 2019 goals recap, where I rehash and see how I did. The first goal was that for Camp Nano, I wanted to do some outlining for my fantasy project, and this is becoming rather embarrassing because I still haven't gotten any of that done because, well, my excuse is that I'm still very much embroiled in my novella, and it's difficult to get another project off the ground while I'm still doing that. But it was a goal, so I'd intended to do it, and I did not. Goal number 2 was to finish and send off my short story, Jewish Adult, and this is the thing that I kept out of my overview from earlier, that I did in fact do that, and I sent it off to the competition I mentioned in my last wrap-up video before the deadline closed yesterday, so I'm excited and nervous and just have to focus on other things now until August when I hear back about whether or not I got into the anthology, so that's a good thing about these videos. It always keeps me with the forward momentum. But I am pretty hopeful about this one. And finally, my goal number 3 I called the Padma story, which is a personal project of mine that I'm not doing for publication, but I wanted to write a story based off of a collaborative experience I had with friends 10 years ago. And I started that. I did not finish it, but I did start it. But overall, I did not meet my goals, so...
Shame. Shame. Shame.
Sheesh, now that Game of Thrones is over, maybe I should get another icon, but she is quite fun. Okay, and finally I have my Summer 2019 quarterly announcement. I have new goals to set for myself, so here I go. Goal number 1 is to edit the corners in my Shiz Gets Real revision. I'm trying to be dramatic with these titles. But anyway, this is based off of the intense session I had with the beta reader I was talking about earlier and all of the advice she gave. The most intense change is that I actually have to get rid of one of my POV characters, and I'll be rewriting some chapters and changing the POV to my other characters. In fact, I want to get through the entire manuscript in these next 3 months, but I have a specific goal in that I signed myself up for my revised Chapter 1 to submit to my critique group for the 15th, so better get a move on. Goal number 2 is kind of a little iffy, but I'm thinking maybe I'll do a new short story for my writing group if I am up to bat again with the workshopping. I feel a little iffy about sharing my other revised chapters with them because I think they're kind of a little bit sick of my novella because they've been reading it for a long time, and these chapters are much further down the line as well. I feel like I can get away with saying, please reread my reworked Chapter 1, but I don't know about, chapters near the end, especially for the new person. And anyway, I guess I do kind of want to keep a forward momentum of new projects, and I guess I'm doing a little bit better with short stories right now, and I have an idea for a specific kind of political one, which might be a little challenging, but it's been in my head, and so I feel like if my name comes up again for workshopping in the next 3 months, maybe I'll give that one a go. Or I don't know, maybe I could make this my complete Padma story goal, but I felt like I wanted to do something a little more proactive and not just a project I'm doing privately for myself. And finally, goal number 3 is yet again telling myself I need to do some fantasy project outlining. And this time I'm getting more specific because I found a specific set of thorough questions off of a website that I'll link below about world building, and I told myself, let's see if I can answer 2 of the sections. It doesn't matter if I just have rambling answers to all of them, let's just answer those questions and give yourself a framework, and I can feel like I'm making a little bit of progress here. Best case scenario, I'll finish my edit of the corners before having to start the fantasy project, but we'll see how it goes. So that about covers it for me now, and woo, we are into summer! I can't believe the year is halfway over. Overall, I have to say I'm pretty happy with this quarter. I mean, submitting a work is always a big thing for me. I've moved so slowly on that in the past especially, and I wrote this whole story within the last few months, so that's something. And of course I'm particularly thrilled that my critique group is up and running again, and that I'm also finding a lot of positives out of joining the Maryland Writers Association. It was a great move, self. So even though I always have some more work to do and things aren't ever perfect, I feel pretty good about where I am with my writing, and I hope you do too. So thanks so much everyone for watching. Keep writing, and I'll see you next time.